Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From Major League Baseball to UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to betonline.ag today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Penn State fans, are you feeling confident that the Nittany Lions can win college football's national championship next season? Lock in your futures bet at betonline.ag today. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State. I'm Tom Hannafin. Today, I'm joined by Landon Tengwall of the Landon Tengwall Show. You can check him out on YouTube. Landon covering all things college football. Of course, former Penn State offensive lineman, has covered Penn State football heavily for the last few years. Does a great job covering all Penn State athletics on his YouTube channel. You have to check it out. But this year, it's going to be all things college football. Very excited to see what you do with that channel. Been so excited and so proud of what you've done after medically retiring from football. Everything that you've done has been so much fun to watch, Landon. I do have to ask you because, I'm a little bit ticked off because you continue to comb through the footage of 4th and 5 from 2018, Penn State versus Ohio State. And can you just leave the nightmare alone? Like, what is wrong with you?
Where I get my film from, the guy, he was like, dude, he's like, seriously, you do not want this, stop. He's like, leave it alone. I'm like, no, I want it. Well, because I realized, I was like, I see the play, but I watched it. I watched the highlights of the last drive online, and I realized that a couple times they ran the same exact stunt that they ran with Chase Young. I got the all 22, and then, if you watch the video I posted on my channel, shield yourself, but they ran it literally every single play on the last drive. I just got to say, looking back to 2018, watching that offense, Trace McSorley, first off, is a god.
Yes.
And second off, it was slightly dysfunctional. I'm just going to put it that way. And let's say thank you to the heavens for Philip Troutwine. Let's also put that out there because, my God, I think we forgot how bad we had it offensive line wise pretty much the entire 2010s.
It's incredible. And I think you pointed out, Will Fries went on to multi-millions in the National Football League. And it's just, and that was the case for a handful of years under Franklin before Troutwine arrived. Is there would be one guy that would go off to the NFL and play 10 years as a starter, make tons of money. And you're like, why wasn't that working in Happy Valley? It's just bizarre.
I said I was pretty honest about it. I think Matt Limegrover was probably here a little bit too long, but we'll leave that alone. No, yeah, I thought that was funny that if you would have told someone in 2018, hey, Will Fries is going to make double the money in the NFL that Chase Young makes and have a way better career, they would have told you are outright insane. But here we sit. That is the great part about football, Tom.
That is crazy. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about some position battles and what we can look forward to training camp. Training camp begins 1 week from today, Wednesday, July 30th. And also today, Big Ten Media Days have already been underway. Penn State's day is today. So Justin King and I are going to have a review of what comes out of Big Ten Media Days later on this week here on State of State. And I also want to talk with you, Landon, about looking at the 2025 schedule, what games and what matchups and what situations really intrigue you. But I want to start off with camp, because you've been posting so much recently about quarterback Drew Allar. Of course, everybody's talking about Drew Allar, what the season's going to look like. A lot of talk about the shape that he's gotten himself into, the expectations for him this year, brand new slate of wide receivers, essentially 3 transfer guys. What's your overall feeling, knowing a little bit more than I about what's happening with Drew Allar heading into this season?
Yeah, I think number one, and you said I just put this on my Twitter the other night, that he looks far and away the best he's ever looked. And that was kind of something when Drew first came in, and he would admit it, he had kind of that baby fat on him where it was like, most quarterbacks, you look around, Big Ben, Eli, all of them, it was like they had the dad bod. And, and Patrick Mahomes even is getting crap for it now. And it's like, well, it works just fine. But now this is the first time he's really looking trim. And you saw last year, Franklin mentioned he dropped like 9 to 10 pounds, and he took a big step forward. I mean, we saw it right away against West Virginia. I believe he had 3 different third down conversions with his legs where we were passing the ball. Nothing was there, and he took off. And he did that a lot throughout the year, just being able to extend the play and then also take off. So that was a big step forward for him last year. I think he's going to even progress in that this year, even with the offensive line continuing to get better. He'll have more time back there. But you said it. The biggest thing is this new revamped wide receiver room. And I think every single time, we have a positive outlook. Everybody thought positive about, every transfer we got. And Mitchell Tinsley worked out well. Dante Cephas did not work out well. There's more that did not work out well than did. And I think there's obviously a lot of optimism coming into this year. My favorite, probably Trevor Pena, just because I think he is going to be that security blanket for Drew Allar this year. I think Luke Reynolds could also be that guy, but a little bit younger, getting going. He's going to need that guy that he always looks to. Love him being in the slot there, being a shifty guy. I think he's also, Trevor Pena is going to be Andy Kotelnicki's gadget guy this year. I think we will tone back the gadget plays a little bit just because we don't have Bo Perbula and we don't have Tyler Warren, so there's not as much want to kind of go after those plays. But Trevor Pena threw the ball twice at Syracuse. He was constantly getting end arounds, double end arounds, all those type of trick plays. So excited to see him really get involved in the offense. And then Ross is, Devontae Ross is a little bit more of that speed guy. He can stretch the field. And then Kyron Hudson is a little bit more of your jump ball, go up and get it for you guy. Kyron Hudson had 0 drops last year, which I thought was a great stat. We've obviously had some struggles with that in the past. And look, the first 3 games, we got to get the wide receivers involved. We got to get going. And the hard part about it for me, Tom, is even if that happens, it's hard for me to even say that it's going to continue to happen just because we were fooled. We were fooled West Virginia last year, and we're like, Trey Wallace, we have a number 1 wide receiver. And then that went away very, very quickly, and it just worked so well. And so I just want that for Drew Allar because he hasn't had that yet in his career. And I really feel like when you are dealing with a group of wide receivers that, let's be honest, aren't as talented as some other schools have, but also they just didn't have the confidence in themselves. You could see that because they weren't getting the ball very much. And in turn, how is Drew Allar supposed to have confidence in his wide receivers when they don't even have confidence in themselves and they're running, crappy routes and not even finishing the routes and stuff like that? So I think that's going to be a big step forward for Drew this year. And then also just Oregon and Ohio State, and then obviously, hopefully, Big Ten championship and playoffs. The biggest thing is I think we know Drew's going to be great in those, against these lesser Big Ten teams. But can he show up in the big games? And honestly, that's for the entire team. That's for James Franklin. That's across the board. I actually just did a video, I posted the other night that talked about, hey, Penn State has only won 3 games in the Franklin era where we were underdogs. 2 of those were in 2016, Ohio State and Wisconsin. And the other one was the Pinstripe Bowl in 2014. So it's been coming on 10 years where we have won a game that we weren't supposed to win. I don't know. We're going to be favored, barring anything crazy. We're going to be favored against Oregon, of course. I don't know what's going to happen with Ohio State coming into that game. But look, it's just like the biggest stage. Can Drew show up? I think that's kind of the main question. And I don't think a lot of people are really questioning, does Drew Allar have the talent? We all know he has the talent, but I think it's kind of that mental piece. Can he finally put it all together and really show up when we need him. Because just, I mean, you look, and like I said, part of this is, was the struggles with his first year, with Mike Yurcich. Part of this was not having the wide receivers. But if you look at his stats, and I'd say he's played in 7 big games, I categorize that as either Michigan, Ohio State, Big Ten championship, or playoff. The stat line is not very good. It's about 1 touchdown, a half an interception, like 120 yards, and like 13 completions. That's the average of those 7 big games he's played in. So can he show up and have, more of that Oregon type game from the Big Ten championship in all of these games? That's what I want to see from Drew Allar. And really just at the end of Oregon, where he was just slinging it, and there wasn't that hesitation. There wasn't that a little bit of worry. It was just, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to ball out and use all the intangibles that God gave me. If we can get that out of Drew Allar, it's a national championship season, but we just need to see him take that big step forward. And I think that first test really is week 5 against Oregon, Tom.
The thing that's intriguing to me, I don't believe Drew Allar has to be Superman in 2025 for Penn State to be successful, because we know what we have in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield. And then you talked about Phil Troutwine. This offensive line should also be fantastic this season. I'm curious, and I want to get your opinion. What do you think happens with right guard and right tackle? Because we feel like we kind of know what center, left guard, and left tackle look like.
Yeah, I really like you asking this question, Tom. I think everybody's talking about DN3 or RB3. The biggest question for me is right guard, honestly. And I'm actually going to do a film breakdown on this. I think Nolan Rucci played well enough to lock in right tackle. And I think another reason for that, too, is Anthony Donko is younger, and Nolan Rucci has this last year. There is no COVID eligibility. This is the last year that the 2020 class gets to use it. So I think Nick Dawkins and Zariah Fisher, there might be one other one, but those are the 2 guys from the 2020 class that are using that COVID year. Guys from the 21 class do not have the COVID year. So Nolan Rucci, this is it for him. So I think that's even more to the reason why he is going to start at right tackle. And like I said, he was one of the highest rated offensive linemen in all of the college football playoffs last year. Just played really, really well. He was a big reason we were just mauling Oregon. And then obviously, ran the ball really well against Notre Dame as well. 300 on the ground against Oregon, 200 against Notre Dame. Right guard, I think, is going to be interesting, because I think a lot of people are really excited about Cooper Cousins, and rightfully so. He is young. It's exciting. Coach Troutwine is talking about similar work ethic to the Pounceys. So, it's easy to get excited about. He appeared in every single game last year. That does not happen for true freshmen. Very rarely are you good enough to go, because it's so much more physical than high school. So for him to be able to do all that is huge. I think that Anthony Donko and Cooper Cousins are going to be in a battle this fall camp for right guard. That's what I'd expect the most. I think Coach Troutwine, that's something that he has talked about. He's mentioned like 2 or 3 times having Anthony, maybe play some right guard. So he was kind of hinting, hey, he's going to get some work in there. And I think I think that's the position battle we're going to be looking at. I would lean towards Anthony Donka. I think Cooper Cousins is really good, but he's obviously younger. I do think Anthony Donko is a little bit better in pass pro at times watching the tape. Cooper Cousins is a big leaner. So obviously he's a mauler in the run game. He's a big guy, but he will lean when he punches. Obviously he's had the past 6, 7, 8 months to work on that. So he definitely is going to be refined. And I know Coach Trout is working on that. That's one of his number 1 things in pass pro, is to make sure you're playing in your legs and not leaning and, being out of position. But I just, Anthony Donko, before he got injured, and if you remember, he actually had 2 injuries against UCLA. You could see it. His shoulder popped out and he was, hanging, and he had to come out, miss the game or 2, and then came back. And then his knee went against Minnesota. But he was, dominant at right tackle. Those double teams, just moving guys out of the way. So where I sit, I'm completely fine if Cooper Cousins remains as that 6th guy across the line, and Anthony Donka plugs in at right guard. Imagine a double team of Anthony Donka and Nolan Rucci. That's about 6'6", 325, and then 6'8", 330 something going against that poor defensive tackle. Good luck.
Pass.
And then,
yeah,
exactly. I don't want that, Tom. I don't think anybody does. And then on top of that, we saw what happened in the national championship last year. Notre Dame and Ohio State, I think they both had maybe 2 or 3 offensive linemen that were starting that game that started week 1. So injuries happen, especially if you want to make it to the Natty. So that we got a ton of depth there. If Cooper Cousins can be that 6th man, anybody goes down on the interior 3, Cooper Cousins can go right in. Anthony Donka can, even if we need to move guys around, Cooper can go in at right guard. Anthony Donka can play either tackle. So I think there is a lot of good depth there, and there's a reason that Coach Troutwine has built this offensive line the way he has. And honestly, I would say even Penn State's second line could compete with a Penn State line of the 2010s, Tom. Not to put any of them down, but seriously, that's how deep I think we are on the offensive line this year. We know what we got with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. I wouldn't be mad if we're close to like a 70-30 run pass split. I mean, truly. Let's be Michigan 2023. Why not? And then when we need to pass it, we got Drew Allar in the gang. But I would lean heavy on this run game. And then we can even talk about it more. But, I mean, the tight ends are great blockers. Khalil Dinkins, Rappleyea coming back. He is an aggressive blocker. Reminds me a ton of Brenton Strange just wanting to bury dudes. So I think the run game is going to be just uber fun to watch this year, Tom.
Like Michigan 2023, just minus the cheating and the sign stealing. I'd be very okay with that.
Yeah, that would be good. Let's not have anybody on opposite sidelines with glasses on scouting the team. Let's be careful with that.
A mustache and the googly eyes, something like that. I'd love to hear from you about the tight ends, because it still remains to be seen what Khalil Dinkins' ceiling can be as the number one tight end. I believe Luke Reynolds will be the number one pass catching tight end this upcoming season, but there's no reason Khalil Dinkins can't be that guy. I've looked at this room, and I think so much of Rappleyea. I love Joey Schlaffer as well. His length, his ability as a receiver is very, very intriguing for the future. But I kind of look at, if the top three would be Dinkins, Reynolds, and Rappleyea, it reminds me a little bit of when you had Strange, Johnson, and Warren in the same tight end room. Do you agree with that? Is it like apples to oranges? What do you see?
Tom, that's great. I'm working on a video on that. I literally had that in my outline of the video.
You're welcome. Yeah.
That's 2020. I mean, come on. It couldn't have been any better. I was actually about to say that too, literally. I mean, it's pretty perfect there. Like you said, of just, you got that Brenton Strange. I kind of would go, you could compare him to Khalil Dinkins or Rappleyea, kind of go that route. But I mean, you got the blockers. Khalil Dinkins and Rappleyea just want to put guys down. They have that one. And I've seen in Khalil Dinkins all last year. Obviously, we didn't really see Rappleyea in 24, but in 23, watch some of his tape. Doesn't have a pass caught yet in his career, but gets out there and works his butt off when he's blocking. Khalil Dinkins just loves to bury dudes. Shout out Ty Howell. That's what happens when you have a true offensive lineman as a tight ends coach. And then honestly, I wouldn't even sleep on Luke Reynolds. He actually threw some pretty good blocks last year. But I think what this does is where, like you said, it takes us back to 2022, where we can get in 21 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 1 running back. And when you only have 2 real tight ends that you feel like you can get a lot of good work with, it's hard to stay in that type of personnel. Oh, excuse me, that's 12 personnel. I think I messed that up. Maybe I messed that up.
You would know better than I.
Oh man. Anyways, my point remains that having a 2 tight end set, it means a lot. It means a lot to have those 3 guys, because then you can switch guys out. If you only have 2, you got to kind of stay in that 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, and then you got to have 3 wide receivers. I think this is also where, let's just say, how we have fared with wide receivers. I don't know if all 3 of them will be a hit out of the portal. We also have some young guys, but then we're not completely relying on, hey, we need all 3 transfer portal wide receivers to be out there and to be playing well. Well, we got 3 great tight ends. Let's have 2 of them on the field frequently. And so I think that can be great for this offense. All of them are great run blockers. I can tell you, Ty Howell, after practice every single day, when the tight ends would go over there in the corner and they get that extra work after practice, almost every single time, it was not pass catching. They didn't really go on the jugs. They went to work base, having their elbows in tight, being able to work on double teams, combo blocks. That is a huge emphasis in that room. And I think that's a big part of the reason. Not only, obviously, we talked about the offensive line being great, but I think Ty Howell doesn't get enough credit for this kind of resurgence of the Penn State run game, where we really went down 2020, 21. I mean, 21, we had like 1 or 2 games with 100 rushing yards, and we're back. So obviously offensive line deserves a lot of credit, but those tight ends, that's what makes a lot of that run game go. And then I think also this year too, Tom, is we want to get in the outside run game. That's something that even when I was there, we were trying to put more emphasis on. I've seen it more and more. And, the guys who seal that edge are the tight ends. The tight ends and the tackles working those combo blocks. So I think they're going to be vital in the run game this year. But yeah, I would expect Khalil Dinkins and Luke Reynolds this year to be 1A, 1B in the kind of how Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren were, where they were both the starters. So that's what I would expect. And I think Rappleyea will work his way in, obviously coming off an injury. But, like I said, we haven't even seen Rappleyea in the receiving game, really. We don't even know what he could provide. I think Khalil Dinkins, it felt like a lot of his receptions and his route tree was kind of rudimentary. It was a lot of kind of block and release, just, simple stuff. He was, when he caught a touchdown, he was butt naked open. I mean, he would just, find a way, a little pick route, rub route, that type of thing. I think here, now let's see, who can stop. I think we know what Luke Reynolds can do. We saw him go up against that Kent State pass where he went up and just caught it like one arm, just looked, just so incredible. Can be that guy to go up and get the ball for Drew Allar. But, who can we also use the other guys in those route trees? So, like you said, I'm excited to see Khalil Dinkins progress in his route running ability. How far can we take it? Where is his cap? I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on in 2025.
I want to flip to the defensive side of the ball because I thought it was intriguing when we were talking about which position battles to look at. You said defensive end 3. For me, I'm like, who's defensive end 2? Because in terms of somebody who's proven themselves, it's Nittany and Sutton, and then it's kind of a big question mark after that. And I understand there's a lot of positivity about Zariah Fisher from inside the building. James Franklin and company have spoken quite highly of him. They expect him to have a big season, but Max Granville going out, I think there were expectations for him to be a big part. Whether he was going to be the outright starter at defensive end opposite DDS, I don't know. But Zariah Fisher, just the data's not there to tell us one way or the other if this is going to work or not going to work. In your opinion, who's DN 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? That's my question mark, the depth there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the defensive line as a whole, I think there's a lot of questions there, and it's kind of funny. It makes sense that last year there was probably one of the deepest rooms, and now you turn around this year. I mean, defensive end, you were loaded. You had Smith Vilbert, you had Amin Vanover coming off the bench, you had Granville being the backup for Abdul in that third down pass rush package. So I mean, it was just loaded. The D tackles were loaded as well. You come into this year, and like you said, there's a lot of question marks on that defensive line. Speaking as someone who went against Zariah Fisher a lot in my career, I mean, he was twitched up. His inside move was really good. That's what always got me when I was playing tackle. He was just very a fluid rusher and kind of understood how to use and kind of feel your body weight. He would love to get hands on, kind of feel you, and then work his move. So he's not exactly, he's not a Chop Robinson or Abdul Carter who's going to just beat you off the line of scrimmage and just get around to the quarterback, but just I would say more of a technician in his pass rush mechanics and his moves that he uses. But yeah, like you said, I mean, look, out, for the season in 2022, I think he ended up coming back because he hurt himself in spring ball, ended up coming back playing like 2 games at the end of the season, but hurt himself there. And then obviously did not see him last year either. So there is that question mark. Can he stay healthy? And yeah, there's a ton of guys on the roster that could plug in behind that, but I am kind of worried about defensive end, if you want me to be honest with you, Tom. I mean, there is no one that's really proven. I mean, we got some young guys coming in. We got someone that should still be at senior prom this year coming in. There's a lot. So I believe that's Daniel Jennings coming in. Went the same route that Max Granville went last year, and it does hurt losing Max Granville. That is the worst. We've had that before. I think that happened to Adisa Isaac in like 21, where guys go home, they get injured. It happens. Guys are working hard. They're trying to get ready for the season. And Max Granville looked huge. I mean, he looked a bit like he's going to be ready, I feel like, next year. But unfortunately, obviously, probably not going to have him for this year. So, that's honestly, Tom, my biggest worry was maybe linebacker coming into the season, picked up Amari Campbell. And now I've started to feel a little bit better. I think we have a healthy Tony Rojas. Looking at it now, defensive line might be my biggest worry. And I think we're okay, just base level, because I think Zariah Fisher will be that defensive end too, just because of, being that 6th-year guy. He's solid. He can play the run well. Like I said, a seasoned pass rusher. We know what we have in Dennis Sutton, hopefully All-American campaign there. I think Zane Durant is the best defensive tackle in all of college football. The things he does on film is absolutely freaky. Got a film breakdown coming out on the For the Blog YouTube channel, actually, working with them this year on Zane Durant. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a really fun one. The stuff I saw on tape, he's like an alien. I mean, I swear that he just completely disrupts the offense. And sometimes he might not even make the play, but he is just altering the play completely. So, and then Alonzo Ford too. We haven't really heard about this.
That's the other thing. Jim Knowles hasn't really gotten hands on with him because Ford hasn't been healthy.
Exactly. So, I mean, there is a little bit of that worry there of then defensive tackle. Who's going to play there? Is Caleb Artis finally going to step up? There's a couple other names that people are throwing around that we don't really know. Ty Blanding. Can one of those guys be that defensive tackle, maybe two, to start the season? Like if where Alonzo Ford was playing before he got injured at Minnesota, really high level. I mean, he was playing great football. With the defensive tackle room was great. I forgot Keziah Izzard too. He was playing at a super high level. But can he return to that? That's my biggest question, because if he can't, then I really start to get worried about defensive tackles. So knock on wood, we cannot afford any injuries on this defensive line, Tom. That's kind of where we're at. But the good news, like I said, on the base level, we got two superstars on that defensive line that I think can handle a lot of that brunt.
And especially with the expectations and the very real possibility that Penn State's playing into December, into January, it's like, okay, that does concern you. You touched on linebacker, Amari Campbell transferring from UNC. Jim Knowles has spoken very highly of him. Do you expect it to be Campbell and Rojas as the two primary linebackers in that 4-2-5, or do you think Dom DeLuca is one of those two?
Yeah, I feel like coming into the season, it probably will be Dom DeLuca, because the one thing I will say is Amari Campbell got here a little late. I think Amari Campbell is no doubt the best tackler in this room. He had about a 10% missed tackle rate last year. Dom DeLuca and Tony Rojas were both sitting around 20%. So he, really is just a lot better in that category. Amari Campbell's tape was a little bit destructive, and not in him necessarily being, destructive to the offense. That UNC defense gave up like 70 points to JMU. His tape, it was like he was constantly having to scream at guys, line them up, because I would see it on the All-22, and I'm like, man, he is just not in a great situation there. So I felt like there was times where he was really out of place, where he was playing a little slow almost, and I kind of want to credit that to UNC and leave that there. That's a hopeful kind of route to go, but I feel like he's going to be able to play a little bit faster and just be more confident when he's playing around more talented guys, when you're playing next to Tony Rojas and, right behind Dennis Seton and Zane Durant there. But I think Dom will start the season, but the nice part is that how it looks is Tony's probably going to be the Mike linebacker and Dom is going to be the Will. What's nice is Amari Campbell will probably also play Mike. So what we could do is there's a world where, we can kind of just have that rotation where Amari Campbell comes in at Mike. Well, Tony Rojas played Will linebacker last year, so Tony Rojas can then bump over to Will linebacker. So I would expect some type of rotation. But as far as the starters week one, probably Tony and Dom, just because they had a spring ball. They got to have all of spring ball in Jim Knowles' defense, which we've heard from the Ohio State fan base takes 3 years to implement. I don't actually believe that, but it is a little bit more difficult. So I think that's the main reason of just being up to speed. But who knows, if Amari Campbell comes out and he is tearing up fall camp, well, I would probably expect him to start at Mike linebacker. And like I said, Tony Rojas can really play either position in there.
I just expect the defense to look different in so many ways. Obviously, a new defensive coordinator, and Jim Knowles has spoken so much about getting the guys to trust him, that when he calls a play, he knows the ball is going there, and just to react and just to not to just do as you're told, but basically it's like just believe in what the system is telling you in the early stages. A lot of guys who are transfers, who are trying to get used to things quickly. Tony Rojas getting back from injury, so the learning curve is going to be very quick for him during training camp to understand this. I just feel like it's going to look different. The depth at defensive back gives me a lot of comfort. We're biased on this show. Justin King, Terry Smith, we think the world of. Lockdown U, like we're super biased, but I think cornerback is probably the deepest room amongst the defense. That is some questions at safety, but Zachy Wheatley, you feel so confident in. So if anything, it just feels like a different look to defense in that you're going to maybe have more coverage pressures or sacks because you do have that ability there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely would. Like you said, yeah, you can rely a little bit more on those DBs, and it's it's been a while. So I mean, not to kind of go back to the other side, but I think this maybe could be the first year, and it should on paper be where the offense is better than the defense, and we haven't had that since 2017, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, you could debate some other years, but probably around there where the offense was just explosive, and we can count on them a little bit more. But like you said, I do agree. I think the DB room in general is the most talented room on this defense this year. I'm really excited about AJ Harris. Oh my gosh, watching that was a steal. Yeah, exactly. So Young, I can't believe we got him from Georgia. How we did. I mean, listen. All these other teams, I'm talking to some guys from like Clemson that cover them and all that. And I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, we got this 5-star over here that hasn't played yet. This 5-star, and I'm like, it's like we don't live that life, dude. If we get a 5-star, we use them, and that's AJ Harris, former 5-star. Well, that's what happens when you actually let someone develop. So super excited about him. Davian Collins talking to some different NFL agents. They think, 4.2. They're talking 4.2 range. Wow. That's the type of speed he has. So lockdown, they both had great spring camps there. So I think they're going to be uber talented. I think you look at a guy, Elliott Washington, talk about another dude that is just, as far as weight room, I've never seen someone as fast. Talking ran low, around 4.3, a little bit higher in that range, sub 4.4, and then also benches and squats, just absurd numbers. So, took a little bit to come on last year. Cam Miller played a lot, obviously gone to Rutgers. But I think Elliott Washington is someone to look out for. And then Zion Tracy is someone that was not been talked about too much. Probably the favorite to start in that nickel cornerback role, that lion role, because that's obviously where Jalen Reed was last year. Not going to see him, obviously. He was, and I think that's something that was a really underrated part of that defense was Jalen Reed was an elite pass rusher. And I thought that just from watching it, and I stumbled across his PFF grade yesterday. He has a 90 PFF grade as far as a pass rusher Jalen Reed did last year, which is really high. Abdul Carter was like a 90 pass rush grade, to give you an idea. So you're really good if PFF puts you around there. So that's, you talked about things we relied on last year. Jalen Reed was an ace at beating offensive tackles or running backs when getting to the quarterback. So hopefully Zion Tracy can kind of remedy some of that. And then also Jim Knowles, can we scheme up, like you said, a little bit of those, maybe send more. Like I said, we have a lot of confidence in the DBs. Can we leave them one-on-one against, Oregon and Ohio State, where we really have been kind of torn up in the past against those guys? So I think that's the biggest thing, is finding that balance in the defense for Jim Knowles of also, hey, it's our first year. Guys are getting comfortable. And how much can we really do and still have everybody, like I said, feel comfortable? How much? What is he going to do as a Key Wheatley? I mean, if I'm Jim Knowles, I am just utterly excited to get that guy on the field and do a lot of different things and put him all over the place. Let him, be near the line of scrimmage, 15 yards off the ball. I mean, he can do it all. We've seen Zakee Wheatley be a ball hawk from day one here on campus. I've seen it since he was in high school. It felt like every single time I've played him, this dude had a turnover. It's just like magic. He's just always where the ball is. So I love where we're at in the DB room. And then also King Mack. Getting King Mack back was huge. Dejon Lane, I think, is going to be a really, really good player. I will say one thing that he struggled with was tackling last year, and obviously true freshman getting put out there at safety. I mean, that is not easy at all, Tom. So getting King Mack in, so we kind of have that third. We have three safeties that we can really rotate, and it's not all on one guy. I think that's going to be huge. I think King Mack is that heat-seeking missile. If you want to think of it like this, almost more of a strong safety that can come down, play in the box, fly down, make those tackles. I think that's what you have out of King Mack. So I even like him, maybe moving him, down, like I said, kind of closer to the line of scrimmage. I just think Jim Knowles is going to be able to do a lot. Now, one thing that Jim Knowles did have at Ohio State is he had three elite safeties. I don't think we have three elite safeties. We obviously have Zakee Wheatley. But so he's going to have to figure out, how do I want to kind of take what we did at Ohio State and where we were really great and kind of change that around a little bit, because Jim Knowles had Caleb Downs, Ohio State's star safety, what I think is probably the best defensive player in college football. He was basically playing middle linebacker by the end of the year. It was crazy. They were basically playing this kind of Tampa 2 defense where Caleb Downs was the middle defender, and he was so fast and long that he could play underneath. He could play those 7-yard routes, but Caleb Downs could also carry a route all the way up the field to kind of be that middle third guy as well. So it was ridiculous what he was able to do. So I guess kind of figuring out, hey, how much of that can Jim Knowles do in this Penn State defense this year? And then obviously we've seen his blitzes are pretty just he's a mastermind. He is a madman. Kind of looks like a mad scientist too when you look at him.
Yeah.
He has like the Lex Luthor vibe or something like that. So, which I love in my defensive coordinators. That's how I want him, man.
I think the coordinator tandem is incredible. If Penn State is so fortunate to keep Andy Kotelnicki beyond 2025, I'd be astonished. I just don't think he's long for this program at this point. Flirtation with West Virginia job, but if there's a perfect world where you keep Kotelnicki and Knowles into 2026, my God, what could be? I want to round this out talking a little bit about the schedule, and you kind of touched on it already. The first real test will be the Whiteout September 27th, hosting Oregon. Very good chance. Those are two undefeated top 5 teams. It would be the first top 5 matchup in the history of the Whiteout. I believe you pointed that out very quickly on social media when it was announced that the Whiteout is going to be Oregon. First time that the Whiteout is against the legitimate best home opponent on Penn State's schedule since 2019. So I'm very excited about that. But then just looking at the bulk of the schedule, October's interesting. You go out west to UCLA, you come home, you get Northwestern, you go to Kinnick on October 18th, I believe, against Iowa. That always makes me a little nervous. I love that there's a bye week in between Iowa and Ohio State. Ohio State on November 1st, I believe, at Ohio State. Then you host Indiana the next week, and Indiana is that question mark of like, hey, were they a one-hit wonder? Are they going to be better than last year or as good as last year? There's a lot of interesting twists and turns on this schedule from my eyes. What do you see?
Yeah, first off, as you mentioned, what I like is that we actually have bye weeks before Oregon and Ohio State. So you got 2 weeks to get ready for both of the biggest games of the year. I will say it's actually kind of interesting looking at, I think James Franklin's record off of bye is actually, it's like 7-5. It's actually not that good.
Not to cut you off, did you like as a player having that bye week before an especially big game, or would you rather just be in rhythm week to week?
Oh, that's hard. Honestly, I didn't like it. I remember like playing like Mozzie Smith, who got drafted in the first round by the Cowboys, and I had to sit on that film for like 2 weeks and like I watched enough of it, and I would have watched enough if it was 1 week, and just what I'm like, this guy is just insane. I'm like, how do I stop him? And so I don't know. There's a little bit of that, but I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, right. But I think it's better to have that break to really be able to prepare, and because the biggest thing you can do is you can really game plan for that team. When you are just week after week, it's harder to come in on a Tuesday. And every week they come in on Tuesday. You watch the film of the previous game on Monday. That's your day off. You take care of school. You chill a little bit. You come in Tuesday and the coaches say, hey, here's everything about this other team. And you already should have watched some of it, but here's everything about the team. And here is, maybe even 3 to as much as maybe even 8 plays that we're going to put in this week. And there may be just variations of plays you already have, but that's hard. I mean, I remember there were days out there on a Tuesday, you go out and everybody has a missed assignment because it's like, wait, we just put in 7 plays. I'm trying to, what's this play versus that? And that's hard. So if you come in against Ohio State and you say, hey, we got 2 weeks, guys. Hey, let's trickle in some plays. Let's get comfortable. Let's really hone in a couple things that we can do specifically to this team that we know are going to work. So I think that's a positive right there. At the end of the day, it's not as fun for the fans, but Nevada, FIU, Villanova, it's a good way to just get going. We mentioned get the wide receivers going early. Obviously, we're going to run the ball. That's where you get to see some of the young bucks for next year. So I like that piece of it.
You don't really have to show anything before the Oregon game. Jim Knowles, the Ohio State game at Oregon last year during the regular season, what did he take from that? What can he do to mess up Oregon this year? And then I do think Jim Knowles returning to Ohio State is maybe the biggest storyline in college football in the 2025 season, one of the biggest storylines. So I'm very curious about that one.
I know it's going to be exciting. I think, yeah, you're right. And honestly, the Ohio State game, it has a lot on there. It has a lot, especially if we handle Oregon. It's Jim Knowles returning. It's, can we finally win in Columbus? Was it Tom Bradley? Was that the last guy to win in Columbus? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it might have been. So that's the big, like, it's like, as a Penn State fan, I don't know about anything about winning in Columbus. Like, can we finally get over that hurdle that is Ohio State? And this is the first year. We don't know. Julian Sands probably going to be very good. Ohio State's freshman quarterback, or I guess redshirt freshman. But, can he be that dude? Is he going to be like every other Ohio State quarterback where we doubt them and then they come out and they are just elite? But finally, we have the Heisman quarterback. They're going to have good running backs. I don't even know. I think they got they got one of those. They got a transfer running back.
T.J. Donaldson from West Virginia.
Yep.
And then I think it's Sam Dixon or Dixon William
Okay,
Sam Williams Dixon. I forget the hyphenation, but he showed some flash last year.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be good. They always are. But finally, we have the better running backs. We have the offensive line. We have kind of where that's what we have. I'd say even they just won the national championship. I think we have the better coaching staff as a whole. So it's time. Can we go in there and finally beat Ohio State day after Halloween? It's going to be an exciting one. And obviously, like you said, Oregon, I'm excited for just a good old-fashioned whiteout. The last time we did that was Michigan 2019, and I was at that one. That's what kind of made me – I was going to come here no matter what, but I remember getting chills just standing there listening to Mo Bamba, and then, Michigan calls the timeout, and I was just like, oh, my God, this is the greatest place on earth. And then I'm looking – people are talking trap games, obviously talk about Iowa. I don't think Iowa is going to be a night game, most likely 3:30. You don't want to be in Iowa when it gets dark. That's what I say. 2021, I've said this repeatedly on social media, the loudest thing I've ever heard when Taekwon had back-to-back. We had like 4 false starts in a row, and then he fumbled the ball. I'm bringing up bad memories, Tom.
You're the worst. Seriously, it's like, remember all those heartbreaks? I'm going to break them down meticulously on my YouTube channel. This is Landon Tengwall.
This is exactly. I don't blame the fans that they hate me a little bit for that. I'm looking, obviously, UCLA. After an emotional, let's say, Oregon win, going, what it felt like last year, didn't even feel like we were playing USC. It felt like we were playing the State College Airport. That's what it felt like. That's seriously, that was the talk of the town. And then we ended up having one of the greatest games in Penn State history at USC. But that's always, tough going across the country, only leaving on a Thursday and then going to play at UCLA. Obviously, they're not great. I think Iowa just talked about enough. I don't know. I mean, it's still going to be a hard game, but it's not like it's going to creep up on us. That's all anybody's talking about as far as trap games go. I'd be looking at, obviously, we see what Indiana is going to be. I think everybody's crowning Illinois as the Indiana of last year. I don't know if Indiana is going to be the same because they just kind of graduated everybody. A lot of people moved on. Still a really good program. At Michigan State is always a tough one. It's in November 15th. Normally we play them. We used to play them the last game of the season, every single year. We had the snow game. We had 5 or 6 inches on the ground against them in 2021. It can always just be difficult going out there. I don't know. Their quarterback, Aiden Childs.
Yeah. If he takes a leap, then maybe he is the gift.
Maybe. So, that's something that could maybe catch you off guard. So, be conscious of that. I'm excited. Matt Rule's return to Beaver Stadium is going to be a good one. November 22nd, the week after that. Who knows? That could go either way. Let's see if Dylan Raiola can kind of get back to that regular season form, or if he's just, going to kind of continue the flop. And then obviously at Rutgers, I think we'll be fine there. So my biggest ones to keep an eye out for, obviously at Iowa, but at Michigan State and at UCLA, I think could both be ones. Maybe Penn State gets off a little slow. And then let's also not forget, if we go 3 and out against Nevada, the whole fan base on drive 1, the Twitter will explode instantly. Right. So, be ready for that one now. I said this the other day, I'm calling it right now. I want to put this on a podcast. First play, 12-yard gain to Nick Singleton. That's what I'm going with. I was having a conversation with a bunch of Penn State fans, and everybody was already talking about that. They were like, I just can't wait to go 3 and out on the first drive of the season. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. Andy Kotelnicki's going to come ready, and I think it's going to be one hell of a year for Singleton and Keyshawn Allen, who I could end 1 and 2 on the all-time Penn State rushing list. If we go to the national championship, almost surely that will happen. So I think that could be that's going to be something fun to watch there. Watch them move up the steps of the student bookstore there.
That would be a great bet. Singleton, 12 yards or 11 and a half yards over under first play of the game against Nevada. That's a nice little bet there. Yeah.
I like that. I don't know. I guess someone's going to
place that.
Out.
Somebody
Yeah.
will take that action. Somebody will take that.
Someone take it. Don't come at me. I'm not responsible. All right.
No, me neither. Me neither. I wash my hands of it. Landon, thank you so much for joining me. I think the world of your journey from football to now full-fledged member of the broadcast media like myself. So I think the world of everything you're doing. Check out Landon's YouTube channel. Check out the Landon Tengwall Show covering all things college football, not just Penn State football. Of course, we'll be covering the Nittany Lions. Does a lot of stuff covering Penn State athletics entirely. So if you have a question about Penn State football, Penn State volleyball, whatever it is, Landon Tengwall is your guy. Landon, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by Bet Online and by Blue White Outfitters.